Greetings. This is the Mega Matt Cat, and today I'm doing something a little bit different. Normally, if there's a game I want to talk about, I do a review about it. But there are some games that are out that I don't feel a review is appropriate for. Instead, I want to talk about something different. I don't want to tell you if it gets a certain grade or how many stars or all that kind of crap. I want to tell you why I think it's interesting and worth looking into. I want to tell you about what might be unique or what might be different about it. So this is not a typical review. Instead, the Mega Cat's going to be telling you something a little different. I'm going to be telling you about a game that I think you should look into that might not always be the newest or the best or even the most commonplace. What am I talking about? Well, I'm going to be telling you what you should be playing. That's right. And what I'm going to do in this show is just tell you about a game and why I think you should be interested in or what might be good about it to get you into the game itself. So, with that being said, what's today's topic? Well, if you recognize the image, you're already ahead of the game, but for the rest of you, Elite Dangerous. What is Elite Dangerous, you might ask? For those of you who weren't into the PC gaming scene 20 plus years ago, Elite might not be something you recognize, and that's okay. Elite is one of those weird, sort of odd things. Elite Dangerous is a reimagining of the game using modern technology. How modern? Well, that's what the loading screen looks like now. That's what it used to look like. We've come so far. I'm being a little silly, but truth is the game has advanced astonishingly well thanks to the technology. What was once something that we could only do with vectors and simple graphics, well, now, as you can see, we can do a whole lot more. But that brings up the question, why Elite Dangerous? Why do I think this game is worth your time? What is the unique thing about this game? Well, the first thing I'll tell you is that Elite Dangerous, by its definition, is an open world space exploration, trading, and combat game. It sort of falls into the same basic idea as games like Freelancer, for example. You could also argue that it's, like I said, it's a continuation of the Elite game series, albeit 15 years since its last true release. But it also borrows heavily from other more recent games. For example, EVE Online might be a good example. Whereas EVE Online's a multiplayer experience at its core, this game can be played both ways, as a single-player experience or a multiplayer. But Elite is one of the biggest and most expansive games you'll ever play. At bare minimum, the estimate of numbers is 400 billion star systems, modeled after our own Milky Way galaxy. What you're seeing is not some fantastic idea about what a far-off galaxy might look at. This is what our galaxy really would look like, or at least our best approximation of it. And you get your own ship and get to tool through it and do what you want to do. But that also brings up the question, what can you do in this game? You usually will start with a low-level basic ship and have to work your way up from, a small one-man trader to a fighter ship, a combat vessel. It's even possible to get small frigates or cap ships. Technically, they're not frigates or cap ships, but they're essentially the same thing for the game's purposes. And you go from star to star, system to system, trading valuables, hunting pirates, exploring the galaxy. And that is perhaps the game's most interesting feature. You can explore the galaxy, our galaxy, the real galaxy, and it is modeled as accurately as we are able to do it with our available technology. Now, granted, there are some things taken, into account. There are space stations in certain areas. There's other ships flying around. There's wrecks and destroyed battle cruisers that you can salvage. All kinds of things you can do. But the game is a learning and expanding world. or galaxy as the case may be. Right now, of the 400 billion star systems, less than 1% is actually inhabited. So think about that. You have billions of star systems to explore. And you can earn money, you can buy weapons, you can buy ships, some of which are insanely expensive, sorry. But that's part of the game's best and most endearing quality in a lot of ways, is that it doesn't hold your hand. It basically gives you a ship, gives you some basic training, and then sets you loose on the galaxy. There's no storyline, well, no overarching storyline. There's no immediate threat or, alien invasion hanging over your head. It's just you, the world, and whatever you want to do with it. And you just go from system to system, doing whatever you like. Good, bad, want to be a trader? You can do that. You can make money doing that. Want to explore? You can do that. You can make money doing that too. Want to be a pirate? You can do that. It can be lucrative, also dangerous. And of course, lastly, if you want, you can simply, go from place to place and hunt pirates, making money that way, and then, trading in your bounties at the nearest space station. You can go as far as you like or as limited as you want. Want to only pull around the inhabited system? Do so. Want to go to the super black hole in the middle of our galaxy? Do so. Want to go to the very edge of space? You can do so. There's really nothing you can't do in this game in terms of flying through space. You can explore, you can discover, or you can just be a douche and hassle other players if you play the multiplayer, or hunt NPCs if you're a pirate in the single player game. And I use the term loosely, but I'll explain as we go. So with that being said, let me give you the rundown and let you decide for yourself if you think you should be playing Elite Dangerous. Now then, let's start with the story. So, what is it about story that is necessary for a game like this? It's not. There is a story that is going on in the background of Elite Dangerous. As more systems are found, as more battles are fought among the various factions, and as more areas explore, you eventually will discover that things change. Systems that were once uninhabited will suddenly have systems in them with, space stations and pirates and all kinds of stuff. Areas that you once explored that seemed completely desolate will suddenly have traffic going back and forth. An area you entered that was at peace, a couple of weeks back is now suddenly a war zone. But the thing is, there is no overarching story. You don't have to go to this system to fight this battle to advance the story. There's no story to advance. It happens naturally all around you. And you can be part of it if you like, or you can say screw it and do whatever you like on your own terms. One of my favorite things about this game is I don't have to do anything, to make the story advance. If I want to, I sure can. I can take combat missions and fight wars. Not that it's always the best idea, depending upon the ship you've got. But, yeah, the option's there. And I love the idea that this game gives you that level of freedom. That the story is present, but is always in the background. Unlike Freelancer, which had a decade story. Or EVE Online, which has a story, but it's sort of so grandiose that you really don't know what to do with it, and only the biggest factions can influence it. This game takes into account everybody's actions, small and large. If you do something, you do something. And if it has an impact, it has an impact. If not, so be it. But at the end of the day, the game is at strongest when you're simply out there in space, exploring all that is. And believe me, there's enough out there that if you wanted to, you could just set course to the edge of the galaxy. Make sure you got a fuel scoop and a ship with a good fuel tank, and you can go all the way to the end and back again. And when you get back, you'll have a couple of $1 million worth of recon data to sell, I assure you. There is nothing in this game that cannot be done to make money, but there's always risk involved. You can jump into a solar system with a black hole and find, well, let's just say that sometimes some things are not meant to be gotten too close to. You can jump into an area and investigate a signal, only to be ambushed by an entire fleet of bad guys. Happened to me more than once, to be honest. And that's the great beauty of this game. But none of that is going to directly control the story. The story will evolve naturally through the actions of everybody playing the game, be it multiplayer or single player. All of it is attributed, all of it is accounted for. And that's perhaps the thing I like about it. At the same time, I do feel that's a little cheap that there isn't like a structured story in it. But in a game this expansive, perhaps that just wasn't possible. There were, perhaps at one time, the idea of making a structured story that you could play through, but I don't think it would have worked with the game's style or size. And maybe in time they'll add something like that. But for now, it is what it is. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean that there isn't interesting lore in the background or that there aren't events going on. But when you really boil it down to its nuts and bolts, your story is the story you choose to write. Are you going to be a daring space explorer, going to the heart of the galaxy or the very edge of space, and returning with millions of dollars worth of data that you can sell? Or are you going to be a trader, making billions by moving commodities? Or are you going to be a pirate? You're going to raid enemy ships and rip their cargo right out of their hull? Or are you going to be a pirate hunter? Find those naughty pirates and blow them into chunks for the bounties? You can do that.
Docking request denied.
In fact, there's all kinds of things about this game that are unique, and the story is always representative of your own actions. You can make mistakes like I did, and get fined for being an idiot at the front entrance to a starport. Done that. I accidentally shot a federal security officer once in the middle of a dogfight. He was not pleased. But the thing is, everything you do is at your discretion. There is no, structured story to guide you. It is your choice as to what happens from there. They start you off in the galaxy, and you go on your own. Now, moving on to gameplay. Gameplay all depends upon what you want to play. What do you want to do? Among the game's most interesting things is the fact that it doesn't use like dogfighting physics. It uses real physics. Things like gravity, inertia, momentum. All these things are accounted for. When you're dogfighting an enemy, as you'll see here, you move at the speed your ship is capable of moving at, as well as whatever energy level you have your weapons and systems set to. So if your engines are bled dry to feed your lasers, then your engines are bled dry to feed your lasers and you're slow as hell. You pack a hell of a punch, as you can see there, but on the same token, you're not going to be running down a swift or powerful eagle if it chooses to run away from you. Each game can be a massive series of victories or a horrible defeat. You can find yourself fighting an army or just hunting pirates in the resource gathering areas. You can mine for resources yourself, you can trade commodities, whatever stokes your interest. But the basic gameplay is you're in a ship, you're flying from system to system, and you do what you want. If you just want to fly from system to system until you run out full, yeah, you can do that. Just remember that there are consequences to actions, and if you run out of fuel with a very powerful ship, if you want that ship back, you have to buy it back. Because your insurance isn't paying for everything. There's all kinds of factors in this game that come into play. And the game is not forgiving. It's not Dark Souls or Bloodborne level of difficult. In fact, if you know what you're doing, you can more or less game the system to make tons of money without endangering yourself all that much. But at the same time, there are, situations that you may find yourself overwhelmed. You can charge into an area to steal gold and other materials only to have a fleet of ships ambush you. And as the game advances, more things will be added to it. There's already discussion of random encounters with an unknown alien race that may happen. There's already talks about more unexpected or unidentified events. The game will continue to grow and evolve the more you play it. Now, on to the technical, and by that I mean graphics and sound, but on to the technical aspects of this game. If there's one thing Elite Dangerous is, it's an example of how far we've come in our technology. Packaged with the game, especially for those who bought the beta, was a copy of the original Elite, which I have played, and it is not kind. To say that the time has not been kind to that system, to those old games, would be a horrible understatement. But Elite Dangerous is a masterpiece of rendering and graphics capability, simply because of the fact that everything you see is rendered as realistically as we can make it. So when you're looking at a star, that's how the star would really look if you were that close to it. When you see a ship being shot to pieces, you'll see parts breaking off, holes ripping open. You'll see its engines cut out and die, or watch as one of its weapons rips apart off of its hull. You can watch as its cargo spills out into space. If there's anything about the game that is a bit disappointing visually, it's that there's only so much in the game that you can encounter. There's no stellar phenomena that, we can attribute yet. You can't go and run down a comet. You can't go into space and find, the sleeping dead old ones from Cthulhu or nothing. Which honestly, that would be cool as hell, but probably not a good random encounter if they wake up and kill you in one hit, right? But there should be more out there. There should be, empty starships that you can go explore, and investigate. There should be more variety in the missions. There should be more ships. There should be more battles. There should be a lot more things. And there are some things about it that I do feel could be done better. Yet for what it does, for having 400 billion fully rendered star systems that you can, actively see as you pan through the sky, that is a very impressive feat. The game is very smooth on a powerful computer. Frame rate is almost flawless. There are some problems that arrive not because of its graphics issues, but because the game is tied to an active online connection at all times. There are times when the game will have to load data from a server, especially for new systems you haven't explored. And what happens is it takes longer to load up than anticipated. Fair enough in the fact that I think they were actively trying to create a cohesive online world. At the same time, I feel that they could have done a lot to make the game run smoother by having it run directly from the hard drive. Just my opinion, especially for solo play. The sound is top-notch for a game set in space, mainly because there really isn't a whole lot to hear in space. It's freaking space. Sorry, it just is. But what is there, the sounds of things hitting your hull, the visual punch of lasers cutting through your enemy, the warning lights from your system, the sound of your engines, and really not much else because there isn't a whole lot of music in the game. I mean, it is what it is. It's a realistic space simulator that really takes itself seriously. And that may not be everybody's cup of tea. If it's not, Star Citizen. Go look it up. Me, I'm enjoying a lot of this game's potential. Sure, there are things that need to be done, and I think it could be improved. But look at this station and tell me that that doesn't look awesome. It's detailed, it's alive, it's vibrant. Yeah, sure, there's some things I would like to see added, and they are adding more all the time. They've added wings, they've added new ships, They've added new challenges and missions. They've even had tournaments and contests. But at the end of the day, for me, it's the exploration that is the best thing about this game. And I'll give you an example, which I don't have footage of, but I have done this. I was running a mission into a dark section of space, just because I wanted to see how they would handle that visually. One area I entered had not a bright, glowing star, but a small purple ball. And I stared at this and scanned it, and it was a dying dwarf star. Accurately rendered, perfectly detailed. It was almost as if there was no light coming from it, as if it was actually pulling light in from around it, which looked authentic in a weird way. Why did I think that this was important? Because it showed that this was truth. You know, this area of the galaxy that I was going to has very, very little in the way of light. In the game, they call it the coal sack. It's an area with few stars, and most of them are dying. So when you go into it, it's black and unpleasant. And it's accurate. You can go to Nebula. You can go to a black hole if you want, although I don't recommend hanging around. But everything there is truth. In the best way that we can, it represents everything about this universe that we live in. Well, this galaxy. And if you've ever wanted to feel what it was like to be an explorer, to go from star to star, this is where you can do it. You don't have to build up to a good ship and get yourself some decent missions, get some money. And once you can get a Viper or an Asp, the galaxy becomes your playground. And there's nothing quite like that feeling of coming back to a station and seeing you are the first to explore a dozen systems. It is shockingly entertaining. There's moments of boredom, sure. Just going from plant to plant, scanning them can be a little bit wearisome. Yet at the end of the day, there's nothing quite like it on the market, really. And we still don't know enough about Star Citizen to say that Star Citizen will be equivalent. I will say, however, that compared to the original Elite, and even the games that followed it, Elite Dangerous is the best, most approachable version of this game that has ever existed. Now, why should you be playing this? This is going to take the place of a review score. Because honestly, I don't feel it's appropriate for a game where so much of it is still unknown. You know, if I were talking about Bloodborne, I could tell you my rating of that game right off the top. Because I've been playing it, and I have an idea. But I can't do that with this type of game. And I'm not going to. I'm going to tell you why I think you should play this game. The simple fact is, there are so few games that give you the kind of freedom this game does. I look at a game like Grand Theft Auto, and everybody talks about how big and expensive that game is, and it's like, you know what? Yeah, it's big, it's expensive, and I'm still a normal human stuck in a normal human situation. Boring. In Elite Dangerous, I have my own ship. I'm heavily armed. And I'm going to go where I want and do what I choose. And if anybody's dumb enough to get in my way, they eat laser and machine gun. Well, cannon, but you get the idea. But that's the point. I feel as if so many games today that go with the open world feel forget that the reason you want to be doing open world stuff is that we want that experience. We want the feeling of being able to go where we want, do what we choose, not let anything stop us. It's one of the reasons I love Saints Row 4, by the way, but completely different context than this game. And at the end of the day, if you like space, if you like dogfighting, if you like the idea of going around star systems and making millions and trading commodities, if you just want to explore, if you just want to be a pirate, want to be a pirate hunter, want to go to the various systems in conflict and fight war, you can do that. At the end of the day, that's the thing that's wonderful about a game like Elite Dangerous. There is literally nothing you cannot do. And I think at the end, that is why it will have the appeal it does. It's not going to be, the next greatest, biggest game. Certainly not. But it has a growing, expanding fan base and a ever-expanding universe. Already there's no less than 15, 20 ships that you can personally acquire and fly. Above all that, there's dozens of weapons, tons of upgrades, and an enormous variety of possible encounters, interesting battles, and some very unusual situations. There's certainly things that are not quite as refined as I'd like them. And I still think that the game shipped a little bit earlier than it should have. I think that some of the choices they make, such as ditching a single-player mode, were poor choices. And I think that a big part of the game's appeal in the future will hinge upon how much more they add and how much they expand. Yet at the end of the day, when everything is said and done, I think the game's strongest point is going to be less about whether it has the same visual punch or intensity of Star Citizen, and how much more freedom it has. Strange thing is I actually backed both this and Star Citizen when they were both starting up. I thought both of them deserved a shot, as well as a few other games I can name. But why am I addicted to this right now? Because it's literally freedom encapsulated. I can go where I choose, do what I want, and be anywhere I like. I can go to a star system, and if someone picks a fight with me, I turn them inside out with lasers and machine guns. The game is not without its faults. But I'm not telling you it's a good game, I'm not telling you it's a bad game. I'm telling you it's a game you should be playing. Because at the end of the day, there is so little out there like this type of game that the first time I played it, I think I spent about 5 days trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And the moment I made a decision, the game opened up. I found what I wanted to do, and I started doing it. After that, I started having fun. Are there still other things that I think could be done? Sure. But, right now, until Star Citizen comes out, Elite Dangerous is going to be the thing for space exploration games. There's other games out there, and there's certainly a lot of projects on the market, but nothing is as refined or polished at this moment as Elite Dangerous is. And for all the little technical problems I've run into, it still runs better and plays better than anything else in the market at the moment. And because Star Citizen is still in such an early phase, I can't compare it to that because not enough data. So, I think you should be playing, and I thank you for watching. Anyway, give Elite Dangerous a look if you're interested. It's not perfect, and I think there's certainly concerns that'll need to be worked out as time goes on. But, yeah, it's worth a try, especially if you have a good computer and the money. If you got a good joystick, even better. Anyway, MegaCat is done. I thank you for watching. I'll be back with more later. Have a good night, folks.